Nicole, what is mail merge? So mail merge is actually a term that I think is a word in Excel term, but we're going to use it in a generic form, which is a way to take a document that you already have, like a form letter, and then take some pieces of information and embed those pieces of information in that form letter. So mail merge is a way for you to take a list or a set of data and insert them into a built structure. Why would you use it? Well, because it's better than having to type out 60 form letters. That's just crazy talk. And then when would I use it? So attendance letters, that's what Natasha and I have worked on. Any kind of form letter that you want to send out, so your student is being recommended for such and such a program because he got this GPA and he took these classes in whatever.
Your student is in danger of not graduating because they're missing this, and this credit.
And that's a different kind, that's the less happy kind.
Use the most often.
Staff or student certificates for you ladies who have duties toward, like, if there's a staff meeting and you need to give PDUs, this is a good way to do that, and I'm going to teach you a super slick way to do that. Student data sheets, Lynn, you were here, but Nicole, you weren't here yet, I think. Years and years and years ago when I first got to Parkrose, we used a system like this to make very nice student information sheets before they existed in Synergy, where we put in a kid's picture, and this is his name, and this is his grade, and this was his GPA last year. You're going to find what works best for you in using these kinds of processes. Mailing labels, lots of things. So those are the kinds of things you can do with it, and you're going to have to be creative. So the steps in the process, there are two pieces to a mail merge. One is the final product document that you want to create, and one is the spreadsheet of data that you want to push into that document. So you're going to have two documents. If we were in Google land, we'd be doing them in Google. And I recommend, and I can't show you this because we can't get in there, when I have something to do like a set of attendance letters, I make a folder in Google and I put both the data sheet and the attendance letter master in that same folder, and then everything that I do gets built in that same folder. So it's just tidy. I just like things to be tidy. And then the other thing that you need to know, and I'm going to show you some samples of the documents in a minute, is in that document you're using, you're going to demarcate things that you want to have the data come in with these little brackets. Because that's kind of what says to the system, whoop whoop, this is where something needs to be inserted. So that's what it's going to look like. So let me bounce out of here real quick and show you some attendance documents. So this right here is what the file looks like that we use to get attendance information. This is what comes out of Data Warehouse. And it has a bunch of fields that you're not necessarily going to use because, because we just get, we get kind of what we get in the file, but you don't have to use all of it. We're going to tell the letter what pieces we want. So we're going to want a date, and we're going to want a school name. We're going to want the kid's name, and I've blocked out the names of the kids so that other people can use this presentation. We're going to want our current year's attendance, and then we're going to use these month-by-month attendances, because those are the things that the district decided to put on the attendance letter. So let me show you the attendance letter. This is Sacramento's version of the attendance letter. And you'll see that I have these tag fields in here. So I say I'm going to put the date in to the parent or guardian of the kid name, the staff at whatever school I'm dealing with. This is where the attendance rates per month get dropped in. But this is just a letter. Well, I didn't create this letter, but you can do anything, Lynn.
So are you just typing those in, doing your
little doohickey word, and I always use
the word, the same word as the top of your.
You don't have to, but I do because it makes sense in my brain, and you would have to in Excel Word. But you don't actually have to because I don't think we're actually going to see it, but there is a place where you map it, where you get a screen that says, okay, you have a field that says today, which of these columns would you like that to map to?
Okay.
And again, we could see that, but we're not going to this afternoon. Not here, you can do that at home. So this is the letter that was created, and then this is where the current year's attendance rate gets dropped in. So this is the letter with the tag fields in it. And this is the spreadsheet that that data is going to come from. Okay, so always has the two pieces. So, here's what we would be doing, and of course in my pretend fantasy world yesterday afternoon where I couldn't possibly envision that I wouldn't have internet, because that's just crazy talk, we would be doing this together right now, but we're going to use our imaginations. We're going to imagine that this is my spreadsheet. So I had to show it to you in OpenOffice because I had to pull it off Google to show you. But originally that spreadsheet was a Google sheet. So I open up my spreadsheet. You guys, the very first time you do this, are going to go to the add-ons menu item. And you are going to search for an add-on called Autocrat. Because that's the add-on that does the mail merging. And it looks like this. It has this really toxic little robot, although he's gone now, Tosh.
Really?
Yes.
What?
I know.
I liked him.
Well, yeah. You like him for the first 5 minutes. And after that, it's like, toxic little robot needs to go.
So, because of the cloud-based nature of Google Drive and whatnot, you do this once, and now any computer you go to is going to have Autocrat
Yes.
already there for you.
Yes. Thanks. That's a good point, and let me reiterate that. Because this is Google, and so this is attached to your Google login, if you do this once at work, and then log in to Google one night at home, because you are a crazy-ass lunatic and you're always working at home.
And should be billing those hours to the district.
Okay, that's a different issue.
You talk trash about people who don't work at home too.
Yeah, I do. I'm just that kind of a person. Then it will know. It'll already have Autocrat, because Autocrat is attached to your login. So wherever you go, whatever machine you're on, it's going to be there. Thanks, Rick, for bringing that up. So you guys, the first time you do this, are going to grab Autocrat and you're going to load it. It's free. Just takes a little bit to download. And then it will always be located right here in your add-ons menu, the same as mine is. Hey, Free, one day we need to focus this, dude. Not right now, but one day we will do. Not right now. Yeah. So that's kind of what this process looks like. So you'd be launching Autocrat. You'd pull Autocrat down, and then one of the things would say launch. You'd tell it you wanted to do a new merge job, and again, you're going to have access to this PowerPoint, so you don't need to take notes on this because you can do it later. Then you're going to choose the template, which is the doc you want to merge into. In our case, I think it's called letter B or something like that, attendance letter B in this example. Then you're going to name your merge job. In this case, I would be inclined to name it something like November attendance letters, because that's what I would be running. Then you're going to do that thing I told you about with the mapping, where it says, you have a tag field called date. Which of the columns would you like to fill in that place? I need to remember to tell you something in just a second. Then you're going to decide how you want to name your documents. So in this specific example, if we were making attendance letters, those are going to go into a folder, which we named up here, and I think we named it November attendance letters or something. I just told you that a minute ago. And each of them is going to have a document name. And so the logical thing to do, in my opinion, you can do whatever you want, is to name them by date and by kid name. And there's a little field in there where you can say, do you want to use one of your tags to name your files? So what you will get when this whole process is over, and again, we'd be doing it right now, we could, but we can't, is you'd have, what's today, 12/10/14 Cherry Leaf, 12/10/14 Natasha Roney, 12/10/14 Patty Baker. You just have a series of files with today's date and the kid name, which in this case is the easy way to do that. So that's how you name your files.
So is it gonna make a separate file for each?
File, but not folder. That's correct. It makes a separate file for each.
Which is what
You
folder
can,
is so
except I have to go back.
important.
Yeah,
Keep
so
those
that
all
way
grouped
all
together
in
in
one
one place.
folder. Yeah, because, okay.
Now, that becomes a PETA later, and we're gonna talk about that. But yes, it makes a separate file, it makes a folder, and then it makes a separate file within that folder for each row of data in your spreadsheet.
Oh, it'll make a folder for you.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, that was this.
Okay. Well, because we had talked about making a folder, us making a folder at the beginning to put our document and our spreadsheet.
That's what I do, is I would be inclined to make this better erase, is that your?
Green's always bad.
Okay,
General rule of dry erase.
interesting, I did not know that. So I would be inclined to make one big folder that had my master doc, my master spreadsheet, and then another folder in it that would have each of the individual letters.
But that small folder will be created
Yes.
as part of
The
the process.
small folder is insta-created, the big folder I'd have to do myself. But that's how I like to do it, just because it keeps all my stuff in one place. Plus, specifically in the case of, for example, attendance letters, and this, thank you, Lynn, because this segues to my thumb, is I'm gonna run the same damn thing every month. I'm gonna use a different spreadsheet, because I'll have the October spreadsheet, the November spreadsheet, the December spreadsheet, but this file, this process that I'm setting up right now, it's gonna be exactly the same. It's gonna use the same letter and it's gonna use the same mapping. So ultimately, at the end of the year, in this folder, which might be named attendance letters, I would have one master document, you know, the form letter. I would have 9 spreadsheets by month, and I would have 9 folders of letters for each month. So that's kind of the structure that I use. Does that make sense? Okay. So, you decide how you want to name your files.
Sorry, I did lots of what if your spreadsheet that you're starting with has tabs?
You can deal with that, but I don't know how. So your job is going to be to learn that and come back and teach us later. It actually does ask you at the top of the kind of process that we would be walking through together, but we're not. Which tab do you want to deal with?
Okay, yeah, because we have credit data and we have, so Tracy's stuff, my stuff, Danny's, you know, Tracy's students, my students, Danny's students, and so it's all in one, so that everybody can see everything together.
And you would
But
be
I
fine.
manage my tab and Tracy manages her
Here's the
tab.
only thing that I'm not sure if you, that would work beautifully, that would be just fine. The only thing I'm not sure if you could do is if one of your pulled fields was on one tab and a different one was on a different tab, like you had credits and attendance on 2 different tabs and you wanted to include data from both in one letter. Not sure you could do that. Maybe you can, and again, you can be in charge of learning. I just do not know how to do that because I have never tried. In my case, because I'm so used to merging separate spreadsheets, I would have just made it one big old long spreadsheet with a bunch of columns in it, because that's what I do. Okay, so decide how to name your files, save your merge rules, and again, this is how you're always just going to be able to go back to that same job every month, and then run your merge. The merge takes some time. The merge is not super fast. For us to run about 150 attendance letters, I bet took 8 or 10 minutes. And so for you, if you need to run a high school's worth of something, or even a grade level's worth of something, it's going to take a little while. So just know that. Don't do it when you've got to do a whole bunch of other stuff in Google. Of course, you can just sit there and let it cook over here and you can work in other things, but it's going to take a while. So any questions about this process part, such as it is, because I know you're trying to envision what this would look like. Okay. The job is done. So then after you've gone and gotten coffee and you've come back, there's going to be a little window message over here that used to have a little robot and doesn't anymore. And it just says your job is done. Then I would always be inclined to go back to this folder, do a little bit of spot checking just to see, make sure my letters were there the way I wanted. Definitely I have had to rerun a job 3 times because I screwed something up in the spreadsheet itself. I picked the wrong header. Just the other day I did one where I picked, I don't know, I put name of school and name of kid because both columns were named name, and that was stupid on my part, but that is what I did. So then you know, and if you have to throw away the folder and do it again, you can. It's easy peasy. Didn't cost anything, no printing until you know everything's right.
And then don't Terry's tell them the color thing, where we kind of changed the color of the.
Oh yeah, that was hilarious, but I don't know how to even explain that. We had brought in a spreadsheet where the text was white. When it was in wherever it started, it was fine, but when we moved it into Google Sheets, because I just dragged it into Google, it made the text white. So it looked like the column was blank. The column wasn't blank, it just had white numbers on a white background.
Wow.
So I just had to highlight it and make the text black and it was fine, but that was exciting. That was fun one.
But our colored columns aren't going to
No, those colors won't show.
translate to our.
No, no. Okay, so you look in the created folder and make sure you do a little bit of spot checking. Your letters are coming out the way you want. Then you print your documents or email. This is the time you may whine, briefly, about the fact that when you're in Google, if you have multiple files in a folder, you can't select a bunch of them and tell them all to print. It's a pain in the ass. Just there you go, that's it. Can't do anything about it. It's click and print and click and print and click and print. Maybe one day that'll change. Google does change a lot, but right now that's what you got.
So, well, and with mine, if I have a Google document and want to print it, it opens it up as a PDF and then I print it.
It should open it within Google as a separate document, that's correct.
And
Yeah.
then I have to print again, and then, so it's like 4 steps to print something.
I think we could bring it down to 2, but I think I can only bring it down to 2. And that one I can't do anything about. Again, if this is a regular job, like monthly attendance letters, the job's gonna be saved, they'll always be set in the same, and all you gotta do is put in a new spreadsheet, and you'll run a new set of letters. So things that you do regularly, you can do that on a regular basis. Len, you're making the frowny face, are you just processing the suckiness of the printage?
I'm wondering why I should do it in Google Docs and why not just take my Google Doc and make it in Excel and do Excel, Word, and print them all out.
You can.
I was gonna say, that's my question. Why, I mean, I now get it in one set when I just take my Google sheet and turn it into an Excel
And
and
then
merge it
with
into
the
my
Word.
letter, and then I get
All
all of
the
my
letters
letters in
together.
one,
Well, I'll tell you one way
Yeah.
you could cheat.
and then I just. print
One
it.
of the options when you're doing the setup is, do you want this to come out as a PDF or as a Google Doc? You could say that you want it to come out as a PDF, and then you'd have 150 PDFs, and they'd be sitting in that folder right there. I don't know what would happen. It would be an interesting experiment to pull this out of Google and drop it on your desktop and see if you could select all and print that way. I know you can't.
Could do that, it would, that many at once would probably bog down your computer pretty bad. I don't know if it's there anymore because of the changes they made to Google Drive, but you used to be able to, check multiple things and you could print them from that main screen, but, so that's probably a feature that's coming back eventually.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt in my mind, because people will whine about it.
Yeah.
But right now, that's where we are. Now, I can give you one other reason that you would do it this way, and, I mean, the obvious reason you do it this way instead of Excel and Word is one, you don't have Excel and Word, or two, you never learned to do it that way anyway. This is now the only way you know how. The other way is, doing it this way, you can have them emailed out. So, in your case, well, for both of you guys, not you guys, I sent your kids their student view activation codes using this method. So I actually, that's how I did those mass emails to your kids, is I made a file that had the kid name, the activation code, and their email address. And then I just ran it through this process, and it did mass emailings for me. And I would always prefer to do email over printing anything. Now, that's not always feasible, but, so that would be, I mean, that obviously you have to do from this lane, you can't do from Excel Word. But those are some things to think about and use the best tool for the job. Sometimes it's gonna be this, sometimes it's not. Okay, so let's look at a different kind of example. Does everybody have their heads around the basics of this? Sharon, is that a happy yes smile or a, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into?
I'm just smiling on it.
Okay,
It's a little of both.
that's an okay thing. I will give you more candy if that will help. Okay, so here is example 2, which is certificates. So let's say you've got parent volunteer certificates. that you want to make. And so you have this Excel spreadsheet or this Google Doc spreadsheet of certificate people, parent volunteers. Look, here are parent volunteers. Hugh Jackman.
Wait, what did I volunteer?
Here's the building, and here are the hours, and I did a simple sum to just count across and add up the hours, so now I have a total hours column. So here's my spreadsheet, and I've been having people do this themselves as they walked in the door. Then I made this document, this Google document that says, thank you for being a great school volunteer, and I've got a date and the school and their name and the total number of hours. So I have a spreadsheet and a document, because that's the rule. And then I can run through the process in the same way and get to those certificates all printed out. Another example would be PDUs. So you might have, and you might be kind of tricky about this, because this way you can use Google Forms and you can make the people fill out the spreadsheets themselves. So you make a form, and I don't know, I don't think the form came through. I made a sample of a form that you could have people fill in. And just put the little GU address up on the board of whatever room you're using for your professional development. And then sometime during the course of the professional development, it's a shame that you can't see it because it's actually very nice. You would have them type in their name, type in today's date, type in what kind of professional development it was, and then I had 2 questions down at the bottom that kind of function as an exit slip. So simple form that everybody can fill in on their own. So as you know, a Google form feeds to a Google spreadsheet. That's how forms work. Google spreadsheet, that's all we need to do this merging. So then you could take your Google spreadsheet and you could just make a PDU certificate that fills in automatically the person's name, received however many PDUs, and you might have to fill that in, or that may just be how many hours the training is. I don't actually understand PDUs, so I'm kind of guessing on this. The name of training and the date. So you could have them do that automatically. One of the new features for Autocrat is that it will make a form, and then you could have it emailed, because you always have people's email when they use a Google form in the district if you set it up to do that. So then it could email them their certificate. So you wouldn't have to print it out. You wouldn't even have to pay any attention to it, because one of the new features in Autocrat is the ability to have the form done, or the certificate built when somebody submits a form. So if we had a training of 30 people, and 20 of them got their stuff done at the end of the day like they're supposed to, and then another 10 remembered to do it the next day, you don't have to look at it, you don't have to think about it. As soon as they submit data to the form, Autocrat runs, creates the certificate, emails it out to them. So that, and PDU things were just the one thing I thought about. There may be other things. There may be classroom things where that would be really appropriate. I don't know. So questions about that? Okay. That is what I wanted to talk to you about related to Autocrat, although I wanted to let you know that the coolest thing about Autocrat is it was made by, last year, the year before, by a junior in high school. So this kid right now is a senior in high school, so I think it's 2 years old. So he built it as a sophomore. He built it, and he runs it, and he's a pretty cool little guy. Tim Cargan is his name. Okay, anything you want to ask me or anything you want to talk about Autocrat? Okay, let's talk a little bit about filtering wonderfulness. So one of the things that we have not had, because I didn't know, is we have not had the ability to say, Patty calls me and says, I would like mailing labels for all my tag kids. I would like report cards for all my sped kids. I would like whatever for all of my whoever. Okay, so I'm going to teach you now how to do that, and we're going to use Synergy filters. So we're not in Google land anymore, which we couldn't go to. We're in Synergy land, which we also can't go to. Different land, still can't go there. So We're in, this is the student screen. I know you can't tell, but believe me, it is. And over here, the very farthest tab over is called Alerts. And if you haven't looked in Alerts, you may want to. Because the Alerts tab down here on the bottom is where we've got a filter for Title X, we've got a filter for TAG, we've got a filter for SPED, we've got a filter for ELL. So if you ever wanted to capture all of the kids in one of those groups, you could. Now you could also run a filter on grade level, you could run a filter on gender, you could run a filter on race ethnicity, you could run a filter on home language, you could run a filter on homeroom. You can run them a bunch of different ways. But for now we're going to pretend that we're doing tag yes. So I said I put a yes in the tag, I hit the magnifying glass to clear it, I put a yes in the tag field, and I'm about to run find. Okay. Then that brings up the screen that most of you should be pretty used to, where it gives you all the kids' names and you can see they're all Y in the tag field. Now, this part up here I would imagine you've never played with, but this says set as filter. So I'm going to name it, so I named it tag, and I'm going to set this as my filter, and then I'm going to check in this box right here, which is make this active. I know you can't see it, just pretend, or imagine. Make this active. And that's when you get this little symbol. There's a little funnel dude here. I don't know why it's a funnel, but whatever, it's a funnel. For filter?
Yeah.
It's just stupid. So there's a little filter dude here, and it has a little orange on it, which means I've got an active filter. And this is important for you to get in your heads, because if you start to use this, and you may or you may not, but if you start to use this, you will find yourself making the mistake that some of us made a lot, for example, on the classes screen. When we would put a filter on for semester 1, and we would never remember to take that filter off, and then we would say, why doesn't this kid have any semester 2 classes? Same thing, if you put a filter on for tag kids, and then you forget and you go away and somebody throws up next to you and you have to, deal with stuff, and then you come back and you try to search for a kid that's not a tag kid, the kid's not going to be there and you're going to freak out. The reason is because you've got your filter set, and so you just need to clear your filter. Okay? All right, so now we've set our filter to have kind of only tag kids. You'd think that would do it, but you would be wrong. So there's one more thing you have to do. You're going to go to the report that you want, and in this case I said mailing labels, because our hypothetical situation was I need mailing labels for tag students. So I'm going to go to mailing labels. Notice my little filter doohickey is on. Then I have to go to selection, student, same as you're kind of used to. You guys have all done this part. Find, and it's going to get me it's going to put in the bucket only the tag kids. And then I have to select them all. Now you'll notice it says beware, beware, beware on top. That is because there are 2 pages of tag kids, and for some demented reason, when you say move all to selected or whatever it is, select all rows, it thinks you only mean on that page. Because for some reason, you'd only want the first half of the alphabet tag kids. You would never want the rest of the alphabet tag kids. I don't know why it does that. So you say move all the kids over, it moves the first page of kids over, you scooch down to the bottom, you go to the second page of kids, you say move all the kids over again, then you've got both pages of tag kids in your bucket. One day, I hope they fix that. That's not going to be anytime soon. Then when you actually run your report, only your tag kids are going to be there. So it's a 2-step process. You create the filter on the screen. Then when you go to the report, you dump only those kids in to be printed. But it does work. It works great. So this was made by Darren and Andy from Gresham, but it works really well. Okay, what do you need to ask questions about before you flee? I know you're going to have to practice this. It's not going to make any sense to you until you can touch it and play with it. I will email you all tonight this presentation once I get home, assuming I still have power and internet, 50-50 shot, so that you can kind of see the pictures and follow along with the instructions. And I'm really sorry that we couldn't run through a couple of scenarios together, but we can't. Anything else you want to talk about, anything else you're worried about, anything didn't make sense? I think if you choose to start using the Autocrat mail merge, you'll find a bazillion ways to use it. I think once you get it in your head that, oh, well, I could just do that, that will make sense to you and it'll work for you. And remember, a lot of data that we pull out of Synergy, I can pull a lot of data, you can pull a fair amount of data out of Synergy, and that comes out in spreadsheets. So all of that stuff is kind of halfway there to getting a mail merge document. You just have to know what document you want to put in. Okay, anything else you want? Okay, run, do free.